Holla ballers, what's going on? It's Preacher. Let's do it. Let's flex those muscles and get ready. I've decided we had so much information. Of course, the patch 6.0, Warlords of Draenor notes have arrived, and we've got lots and lots to talk about. This was a dump of information. This was a giant King Kong turd of information that's dropped on us. So now we're starting to see the most important thing, which is what I want you guys to take away from this, is the direction of the game. This is where this expansion is taking us. This is the beginning of the journey. This is where we're going. What I will say after reading through this, I spent a night, I slept on it just to make sure we got some, let the nerves settle down and let the initial reactions kind of go away while we look at things objectively, is that this looks to me to be the Hell patch notes. And then we're likely in the next couple of days or very, very soon to get the Heaven patch notes. This is the culling. This is everything we are losing. This is what's going away, and a lot of mixture of stuff we already knew thrown in there. What I would expect to see, Blizzard's pretty wise about how to inform its players of stuff, is they're telling us now, look, this is all the stuff that's going away. We're getting rid of all this crap, all this nonsense. This is going away. Some of it's going to piss people off. Some of it's going to annoy you. Some of it's kind of okay. Then we'll start to get the patch notes, which is, and this is what you're getting in return, all right? This is the good stuff that's coming in its place. So I would consider this to be the Hell patch notes, and then I expect the Heaven patch notes to come very, very, very soon. A very yin-yang approach seems to be. In my prediction, I think that's what's going to happen based off these notes. But what we can say is these notes aren't bad. If it is a case of this is the nasty stuff, this is the stuff we're getting rid of, and this is the stuff you're losing, not that bad, actually. Not a lot of stuff to really get up in arms about. Some things that are really hypocritical. There is so much information. I've got to divvy this up into a couple of videos. Otherwise, it'll be too goddamn long. So this one's going to be the general gameplay changes, which is the most important. Most important. Class stuff can be worked out later. We will do a video looking at the class changes and some of the more interesting things that have come out of that. But this one's going to look at the general gameplay stuff that's really going to hit everybody. And then we'll look at the other stuff later. So first things I kind of want to touch on was the profession change. The professions will no longer grant you any form of combat bonus. So that means herbalists are losing lifeblood. Blacksmiths won't be able to socket their braces and gloves. Of course, synapse springs will be going. All that kind of stuff that affected you in terms of actual performance. That's going away. They're getting rid of it. Opportunity here, I think we have to look at, and again, we might be looking towards the Heaven notes, as I'll call them, to really flesh this out for us, because at the moment, interesting change, especially the hypocrisy that goes in line with the fact they didn't remove the racial combat traits, which I find really odd, because the one good thing we can say about profession traits is that we get to choose them, and it doesn't really affect our character at all. Doesn't do anything horrible to us, and we can change it on demand, and it just costs us a bit of gold. Now, you might say, well, racials are more fun and interesting, right? Not really. Not when it comes to actual combat and gameplay. What I would really have liked to see is racials go away and more interesting stuff brought in on the professions. Something that players can choose while still maintaining the class they want to play, the race they chose to play, the race that's their favorite. I would have much sooner seen racials go away and professions been twerked in some way. Twerked? Oh, God. Tweaked in some way. That would have been a much better decision. But what we can talk about with the professions is, okay, you're getting rid of the bonuses. Now, that makes kind of some sense as people were only leveling professions to get their bonuses. I'm sure most of you out there really either capped your professions because it was there to be capped, or you just leveled your professions up to the point where you could use the bonuses. And most people use their professions that are the more boring ones, like blacksmithing, to just play the auction house. Something that can be easily done on an alt and isn't that exciting for your main character, let's be honest. If they're removing all the combat stuff, if you're not going to be getting those bonuses, your leatherworking bracer patches and so on and so forth, if you're getting rid of those, why won't everyone roll an engineer? Because that's the one that comes with lots of fun perks that really help your character out. And that's one of my issues with this, because we haven't seen what we're going to get instead, is that for right now, I can't see why anybody's main character wouldn't roll engineering, because it has far more utility and far more scope to have fun. Has many more interesting mounts, in my opinion. I know dual crafting's got some, but compared to the engineering ones, I don't know, man. I think that's a long way to go. Mixing the fact that you can have wings and all sorts of stuff going on with engineering, as well as just fun toys to play with. yeah, engineering just seems so massively out of place now in terms of how good it is in comparison to everything else. Because if you're not getting any sort of requirement for raiding bonus that really makes your character that little bit stronger, then you're going to choose the profession that's most fun, more than likely, if you can afford to change. So what we want to see, and what I hope, or what my hope is with the professions, is that every single profession is getting something much more fun. Something much more fun to put it on par with engineering, at least in terms of things that you can enjoy. I would like to see something put in there that allows the other professions to be just enjoyable and give us a reason to roll them. Right now on my main character, do I have any particular reason to roll herbalism? No. Lifeblood used to stack with certain things. It was actually quite nice. Have I any reason to roll blacksmithing, skinning? Skinning was a shit one anyway. But you get the idea. I'm not getting any combat bonus from that at all. And therefore I just want the fun ones, right? That's the whole point. If I don't need any of these professions, then I could just roll the fun ones, or I can in fact leave my professions blank if I can't even be arsed leveling it. And therefore you're cutting out a part of the game. So what I'm hoping to see is this is a huge opportunity for people just to go, what can we do with this? What can leatherworking really bring to the table in terms of personal fun, in personal engagement with the players? What can the players expect when they roll leatherworking other than hopefully there might be some good leatherworking recipes? But traditionally, and especially in a world where we have things like warforged items, which are significantly better, recipes just don't cut the mustard anymore. They really don't seem to stand the test of time when you can get relatively easily warforged or modified versions of drops, which are just significantly better. What we don't want to do, really don't want to do, is return to the Drums of War from TBC, where one of the professions gained an ability that was so fun, as we can put it, that it was actually became mandatory. Mandatory for every single raider in the raid to have leatherworking as it was at the time in TBC. We don't want to see a return to that either. What we want to see, I think we can all agree, is that our professions now give us some sort of just fun thing to use every now and again. Might not be relevant in terms of a raid boss, but Christ, it's funny when you pull it off because it just looks cool. Great opportunity here by Blizzard to say, let's give people a reason to want to take these professions that isn't something like, oh, well, I kind of want to put my buckles on the auction house. Allow me to spend a lot of time and a lot of gold getting all the materials so I can level high enough to do that. And also, particularly, inscribers. The people who have rolled inscription must feel a little bit ticked off right now. A little bit ticked off because, of course, we're going to be getting automatic glyphs. Automatic glyphs are coming in. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later, but inscribers might need a little bit more than a shoulder enchant to make them want to level their professional all the way up to max. Because it's not the easiest thing to do in the world. It's not overly difficult, especially if you've got the resources to get it done. But if you don't, which a lot of players don't, we've got to remember a lot of players don't have access to the type of resources that others do, then you're going to run into a lot of problems there where it's just not worth it. Not worth it. And do you want players to look at a profession and go, it's not really worth my time, you know? It's not really worth my time, the effort, the resources, the materials, the farming, the gold in order to level a profession to max because, you know what? I can probably get the benefits of that profession from the auction house pretty easily from people who've already got it. And that's a little bit sad. What I will say is, why was this not announced before the level 90 boost, especially the boost that involves capping professions? I'm sure there's so many people out there right now who are a little bit pissed because they leveled on purpose. They avoided a free 90 boost in order to get to level 60 and then get their professions boosted, only to then be told that those professions are now not as relevant. So on the face of it, it looks really boring for professions, but again, I do expect some sort of announcement where Blizzard can take this opportunity to just make them fun. Instead of trying to work on the balance and trying to make sure that the sockets and the epic gems all line up nicely and everybody's getting the same bonus, you can see why they removed it. Because all they had to do was make sure that every bonus essentially was the same. Although occasionally it did get out of whack and something was slightly better. It was never game-breaking like we saw in Wrath of the Lich King with jewel crafting. What they had to do was just ensure all the things were balanced. A little bit pissy on the guys who just boosted. A little bit pissy on the guys who just boosted to then say, you know what, the profession bonuses, yeah, they're going away. Ah, well, I just leveled to 60 purposely to get that bonus. Thanks, Blizz. Thank you very much. The healing stuff we knew that was coming. Healing stuff not too bothered about discussing here. We talked about it in other videos. Same with hit and expertise being removed, and the same with the change to stats. It was interesting to see that we will no longer be gaining critical strike chance from intellect and agility. I just wanted to touch on this a little bit. Is that going to overall really lower? I mean, we're talking about lots and lots of these main stats flying around these days, and it's only being squished. It'll still be a same relative number. Are we going to see a dramatic reduction in critical strike for a lot of classes? Minor issue, to be honest. Really minor issue. The ones who count on it are getting it by default, so your rogues, your hunters, your ferals, your brews, your windwalkers, and your enhancement. They're kind of getting it a little bit extra bonus there from an extra 10%. But still, crits are nice, and that's the only thing that worries me there. Is crits are just fun. Hitting a big crit on a character that doesn't crit all the time, yeah, that's fine. Did see really any changes from the racials. We talked about those in the past. That was cool. So the next big gameplay thing that really smacked me in the teeth, especially from the PvE combination, was the tanking changes. The tanking changes. Vengeance, be gone. Get out of here, Vengeance. Nobody wants you. We want Resolve. Do we? Did we want Resolve? This one seems really odd. So Vengeance is going away, being replaced by Resolve. Resolve increases your healing and absorption done to yourself based on stamina and damage taken before avoidance in the last 10 seconds. And then to keep DPS meaningful, we'll get some attack power bonuses from our mastery just tacked on there. Just really tacked on. I've never been a fan of tank self-healing. I always feel to myself, you know what, the healing, that's somebody else's job. It's part of the Trinity. The Trinity is a tank, a DPS, and a healer. And you've got to imagine if we're getting decent damage and self-healing and absorption, they can't really be meaningful amounts, can they? What does that mean for tanks? That they're essentially unstoppable in certain environments because they heal and absorb so damn much, and they also have pretty decent damage. Surely we can't see the kind of numbers that tanks are putting out today. Can we see that? Is that all right? I don't think so. I think it's got to be significantly discounted compared to the pure classes of the pure healers and the pure DPSs. Otherwise, that's pretty wacky. It's pretty wacky to see that. And I understand the idea is that, yeah, but in a raid you take so much more damage. I don't really want that to affect my self-healing. So that's kind of somebody else's job. But maybe I'm being finicky. Maybe I'm being a bit picky there. But when I roll a tank, I didn't intend to roll it so I could heal myself. That wasn't part of the deal. That wasn't part of the package that I signed up for. It really wasn't. But I can see tanks being very, very solid on their own. Especially, let's consider how difficult the new 5-man content might be. Are we going to look at certain tanks? I'm looking at you, Blood DKs. I really am looking at you, Blood DKs. And probably you, Monks, as well. And the Pallies. Doing pretty wacky stuff. Because you're always constantly healing, absorbing, and doing damage all at the same time. That is just part of your mantra. That's exactly what you do. So, how are we going to see some things getting a little bit wacky there? We've got to assume that they've tried it out and it's balanced. Obviously, they've been playing the game for a while now. So, it's got to work out in some fashion. But, what happened to just threat? I was hoping we'd see threat. I've got to be honest. I was really hoping I'd see threat. I saw Vengeance is going away. Oh! Does that mean we're going to get something to do with threat there? And no, he didn't. Threat is gone. There's no mention of threat. Threat has just disappeared now. Threat is just a non-issue. And now we're looking towards healing. This is supposed to back up the idea of the active mitigation model, which they believe works really, really well. I would question that conclusion. I would really question that conclusion. It works really well for the classes who were designed with active mitigation in mind, Monks and DKs. But I think the Warriors, Pallies, and the Druids are still way catching up to making it work from a base design perspective, from a way that they are actually built around that model. Because so far they seem to have very cheap, patchy add-ons to try and make that work. Spells that have been reworked to try and squeeze them into the active mitigation model. And now we're adding on the healing and absorption effect to kind of buff that a little bit. It still feels a little tacked on for those classes. Obviously, if a Blood DK sees a huge increase to self-healing and absorption, they just go, lol. That's fantastic. And the monks do the same thing. It's like, okay. Fine. That would be, that's absolutely fine. I have no problem with that at all. We could touch on the healing changes a little bit. It was nice to see a lot of the buffs and debuffs disappear. A lot of them didn't make sense anymore. That's one of the messages I was trying to put out last night when it first originated, is some of the stuff that's being removed is stuff that just no longer mattered. So the fact that we see weakened armor going, sure, from a nostalgia perspective, to see Sunder armor disappear, it's kind of sad because, you know, we have this sort of nostalgic vision of apply all the Sunders, wait till 5 Sunders before we get DPS and all that kind of stuff. But it's totally irrelevant in today's game. Massively irrelevant. And they're right in saying that, you know what, Druids just applied Fairy Fire and it was done for the remainder of the fucking fight. Warriors were using Devastate anyway, so Sunder Armor didn't make any goddamn sense. No rogues wanted to use Exposed Armor, so it was pointless there. So let's just get rid of it. There's absolutely no point in it being there. Similar with Weakened Blows, there was just no point. Which Blood DK wasn't using Scarlet Fever or Monk's Keg Smash and so on and so forth. I mean, there's no way you can say that a Paladin wasn't using Crusader Strike and Hammer of the Righteous. Therefore, the debuff was pointless. Absolutely pointless, because it was on anyway. Only a real scrubby, purely by accident group wouldn't have had this debuff applied, and it would have been a really bad bunch of players, which we can't really count on anyway. To combine different types of haste in the game, we merged spell haste and attack speed into just haste. Yeah, why wasn't that done anyway? The homogenization of buffs was actually a good thing. It was really annoying if you had a guild, especially in 25-man, who was missing one buff. Because that one buff, especially spell haste, which was particularly problematic during Wrath of the Lich King, only came from Moonkins and Ellie Shaman, which weren't overly popular, I might add. Missing those buffs was a real pain in the ass, because you had a lot of casters in there who were just missing out on a lot of damage because you didn't have that one particular class. So to see this, again, just being reworked into spell haste and attack speed, fine. No problem with that at all. We've got the buff. It feels more powerful to be in a group. That's what we want to take away from this, is it does still feel more powerful. It is. Doesn't not just feels, is more powerful to be in a group with other classes. And we're not relying on individual little people to be doing their thing. So I'm more than fine with that. Really more than fine with that. The healing stuff I wanted to really touch on a little bit before we get into class-specific stuff was the actual changes to the instant cast. We did know they were going to change instant cast healing a lot so that some spells weren't instant cast anymore. I kind of feel a little bit like maybe it's gone overboard on some of the spells. Just that little bit. Wild Growth and Uplift, fine. Really am fine with Wild Growth and Uplift having some sort of cast time. It's 1.5 seconds. No big deal, right? No big deal at all. Fine with them being able to do that. Nothing wrong with that. From the Druid's perspective, loads of spells that can still be cast instantly, so no big deal. From the Monks, you can still be charging around and torpedoing all over the place to get in position for Uplift, and Uplift wasn't really a spell that was saved for while on the move. Neither was Wild Growth, so perfectly fine with that. The Paladin ones, though, Eternal Flame and Light of Dawn, I don't know if I'm okay with that, because Paladins can't do a great deal on the move at all. They got Holy Shock, essentially. And the fact is you have to build up resources and able to use Eternal Flame, Word of Glory, and Light of Dawn. So you had to generate resources beforehand. Not the same as with really Uplift is Chi, which you're generating by being alive. You're generating Chi, and Wild Growth had no restriction other than its mana cost. So I'm not too happy. A little moving Light of Dawn can really save lives. A lot of times that used to happen, especially with the healing rework, is if you're having to move and you can Light of Dawn the group as it's moving, that's quite nice. So I kind of feel the same about Prayer of Mending as well. It's a very, very powerful spell. I would probably like to have seen that actually move down in power, but still be instant cast, because it does only affect a certain amount of people. It has to bounce around. It's certainly no instant cast. And obviously, Circle of Healing appears to be remaining instant cast. I don't think I saw Circle of Healing being changed. A lot of buffs. Yeah, I don't see Circle of Healing being changed at all. I just scrolled down to the priest changes just to confirm that. Prayer of Mending, but having a cast time, it's nowhere near as powerful as a Wild Growth. Maybe even longer, make it a longer cooldown, or just weaken it a little bit if you're worried about it. But Prayer of Mending, yeah, it actually worries me a little bit again for Shadow, is that Divine Star and Halo and Cascade all now have a cast time associated with them. What does that mean for Shadow? Again, we're looking at a little bit of class-specific stuff, but to see those things getting a cast time, Cascade, sure. Cascade is super powerful. Again, Halo and Divine Star getting a cast time. Divine Star, I know how ridiculously powerful it is right now, but those are spells that need reworking in terms of power. A cast time addition to those, I don't know. A moving Halo again with Light of Dawn and moving Divine Star is always a very cool thing. But yeah, maybe a little bit overboard on the priest and pally, but I can see what they're going for. There's a little bit more decision making thrown in there for the healers, which is always nice. The healers didn't have enough decision making to do. Totally get that. The automatically learn glyphs, as I said from the profession's point, is the inscriber's got to be a little bit pissed about this, especially as these glyphs are actually good glyphs. As far as we know, we always have to bear in mind with this stuff, it's alpha patch notes, and we don't know what new glyphs are coming in. So you have to bear that in mind, is you don't know what else we're going to get. So, but at the moment, these are really, really good glyphs, pretty much. Savagery's in there for the druids. I mean, I'm not going to go through them all because there's obviously lots and lots and lots of them, but there are some very, very good glyphs that you're going to be learning automatically. Some glyphs which are already mandatory, and these are the only glyphs that inscribers were actually making money on. That's something to bear in mind there if you're an inscriber is, well, that's a bit shitty. That's a little bit shitty, but maybe we're getting new glyphs that are slightly better than these, and these are kind of the weaker ones that are okay, not great. Maybe that's the approach we're taking there, but I would be a little bit pissed if I saw the glyphs, because there aren't many glyphs we make money on. Some people are definitely completionists when it comes to their glyphs. They like to have access to everything. I'm not one of them. I get the glyphs that are like, they're the glyphs that I need. I'm never really going to change them ever. So why would I buy the rest of them? So then those are the ones that the inscribers are really making some cash bank on. So to see them go away, a little bit shitty, but at the back end they probably are still using the shoulder enchant, so maybe that's your only hope for inscription, unless we do see the professions get some sort of nice changes. So that's sum up the overall changes. The direction, very cool. Very, very cool. Do like the direction so far. Again, this looks like it's opening up the doors for just huge amounts of opportunity. So much opportunity here to just add a lot of fun to the game. We're going back to basics. A lot of things going back to the way it was, but being changed and still modernized at the same time. Gear levels going back to an actual usable figure and number with the stat squish. Loads of abilities have been removed. Absolutely metric shit tons of spells removed that were pointless. It's got to be said, a lot of this stuff was pointless, or it was so mandatory it wasn't fun. It's like, why didn't you have that on? That's annoying. Inquisition in particular. So we'll talk about that more in the class stuff. So overall, this is a great land of opportunity. I want to see what we're getting in its place. The only real hypocrisy I can see is the racials and the professions. I wish that had been swapped around in some way, so you can have any race we want and we can pick and choose our combat bonuses from our professions. Really would have loved to have seen that. All right, I'll see you in the class specific video. Have a good day, guys. Bye.